And we are live once again for episode 170 of Behind the Tool Belt. And then I'm Ty, your co host. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you in a minute.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer.
Behind the Tool Belt is sponsored by Lead Scout. Find out more at leadscoutapp.com.
Roofers, you want at least 5 solid lead gen tactics building chemistry. Let's say you have door knocking, referral systems, job site branding, and you add in aggressive SEO, paid ads, and boom! Smells like more leads. hookagency.com.
TC Backer.
Welcome back, everybody. God, it feels good to be back in the studio once again. What's happening, Michael Stearns? How are you? I see you got a guest.
TC
tonight?
Backer.
You like that, don't you? We might as well do a big shout out to our sponsors, Lead Scout, Hook Agency, and TC Backer. Big shout out to those guys and everybody else that watches us, everyone else that supports us. Thank you guys so much. We're back in the studio. We couldn't do all of the traveling and advertisement and marketing without you guys. So thank you guys very much. Big shout out to our sponsors. So Chris Combs, Michael Stearns, what's happening? Where you guys at? What's going on?
It's Corey Combs, but
Corey Combs?
All good. Listen, you've been called for it.
You see? Okay.
So yeah,
I was actually guessing. I was trying to.
you were close.
Yeah. You like that? I thought you looked familiar, so I was close. But hey, nice to meet you finally face to face, even though it's over. What do you call this? A video chat?
We'll call it an e-meet.
What's that?
We'll call it an e-meet. Like
e-meet.
Yeah,
there you go. E-meet.
Yeah, Ty, what do I do with my hands?
What do you do with them?
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure, dude. I missed you. Like I told you when I saw you down at Wealth Builders. I missed you there towards the end of our little tour that we went on. I always feed off of your energy, and that's kind of what I think I was missing the most, was feeding off your energy. And that's why I thought you would be a good guest as our return back to the studio. I just thought it'd be good because I know we always have great conversation, whether it be about marketing, whether it be about real life shit, real life events, and whatever we feel like talking about, because this is our show.
Yeah, dude, I like that shit. I was super excited to see the request come through yesterday. I was like, of course I got time for my guy, right?
Absolutely.
So Corey's out of Tampa, and I'm purchasing what I call a divestment property here in Tampa, and that's where like I divest from some of my money, not to make money. It's not an investment property. Distinctly different from an investment property. Investment property makes you money. This is actually going to lose me money. However, it's going to gain me sanity, right? Because we just got hit with a belligerent winter in Buffalo, and as I get older and my joints hurt more and more every day, it's like I can't do another winter in Buffalo. So I'm going to divest from some of my funds to not have to endure another winter in Buffalo. And I had to do a walkthrough on a house while I was here. But it's not going to be a terrible loss because we're in an Airbnb and stuff like that. So it was kind of, we found a situation where in Tampa, there's a lot of HOAs that don't allow short-term rental, and it can be a nuisance. So we found kind of like the perfect situation where there's no HOA, no lease restriction. So when we're not here, we can Airbnb it if we so choose. And then I'll, I'm hoping to live here like, maybe February to April, something like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. The buying property is never a bad investment. I mean, at any given time, and I'm going to use an example of the first home that I ever bought. Back in 2005, I bought a 2-unit, and I used a realtor who I thought was my friend, and he was, but he was a businessman, and he sold property, and he did it for money. But years later, I had realized that I overpaid for this place. Now, my biggest concern is that it was a rental property as well on the first floor, so I could at least supplement my income to help afford the mortgage, right?
Sure.
Now, fast forwarding till today, what I paid for it back then and compared to what it's worth now, it has doubled in price. So even back then, so right now you might think I overpaid for it or whatever. It's never a bad time to buy property. I don't care if it was yesterday, last year, 5 years, today, tomorrow, doesn't matter. It's never a bad time to buy property. It's always a good investment because for tax purposes, depreciation, and we all know that it only increases in value at some point in time. So, and besides, I mean, the improving the quality of your life, that's probably one of the biggest self investments that you could do for yourself. Janet and I bought a house, I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that, right before the pandemic shit hit the fan. Bought a place. We had lived on Main Street in Dover for 10 years, right? And people were kind of surprised where we lived. And I wanted to put an addition on it and put a pool in the backyard. So I had my contractor buddy come on out, and he's going over everything, and he's drawing a blueprint up. And halfway through drawing the blueprint, he's like, dude, why don't you just buy a house? Why don't you just buy a new house? You'll never get the money back out of what you're putting into it that you want to put into this thing. And besides, it'll improve the quality of your life. So I didn't want to do it. Janet and I had remodeled this place 10 years prior. I put my blood, sweat, and tears in it, worked on it every single night, every single weekend ourselves, and literally did not want to move into it because I was so sick and tired of it because of working there every single day. But we did move into it, and I loved the place. My mom moved in with us for about 4 years, up until she passed. I mean, I just love that house, still own the house. It's a rental property today. And so we went and we found a house. We had a pool put in by my contractor buddy. And I'll be honest with you, when I go home at night, I almost, not that like I feel like I'm at a resort, but with the pool and the landscaping out back, and we got like a larger rancher. So it's one floor, but it's got a finished basement kind of rancher with an A-frame cathedral ceiling and sliding glass doors and big windows. So I can see out to the backyard with the fireplace and the pool and the landscaping, hardscaping and all that stuff. It makes me feel good, right? I sleep good. I feel good. It's my happy place. It's my safe place, which then in turn, if I feel good, I look good, I perform good. Right. And that's kind of how I looked at it, even though I didn't want to make the investment. But looking back 3 years ago to now, I'm grateful that I have, and I haven't gotten over how the joy that I get every night I go home.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. I came from the remodeling space, and we used to call I worked for a high-end remodeler, and we would call those lifestyle improvements, right? Not that you're going to get a return on it, because a lot of people always look at, hey, this money I'm investing in my house, am I going to get this back? And so sometimes, you're just not, pools, things like that. Sometimes you're not going to get the money back. So we just started calling them lifestyle, upgrades, and just let people know, like, you're doing this really to better your life. Right. And I think that's a great story, walking in the backyard, having a nice pool, being able to relax, barbecue with your family. You can't put a dollar value on those things. You really can't.
Absolutely. And that's a good point too, because the grandkids come over, the kids come over with their kids. We can actually hold holidays there now, because at our old place, we couldn't have Thanksgiving, Christmases, things like that. And that's really, isn't that what it's about?
Yep.
Is being able to enjoy your family, having a space where you can enjoy your family, which in turn improves the quality of my life.
Yeah, undoubtedly. It was really tough for me. The first house I bought was a 4 unit, and we moved into the one as I was like renovating it, and it's like scrappy, right? I'm like a year one contractor. I'm getting my hands dirty. It's like the only time you could ever say Mike got his hands dirty was renovating this house. And I lived there for like 2 years, and I mean, it was the hardest thing in the world for me to, because it was a 4 unit and there was a rental property and it was, there was income associated with it. It's like I'm living for free and I'm making a profit. So to pull the trigger on a single family home out in the suburbs like we wanted to do was I met a lot of internal resistance with myself because I'm a very rational person, and it's like, man, it doesn't make sense to pay $2,000 for a mortgage out here when you're making this money on this house. You should just buy another double or buy another 4 unit and do the same thing. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. The last 2 years have in that regard have kind of sucked, right? And it's like, I was walking home from the 7-Eleven. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, where I'm like, fuck it, we're buying a new house out in the suburbs. And I went in hot with the offer. I got shot with a paintball gun. It's in the city. I was walking home from the store and shot up with a paintball gun. I'm like, that's it. And that's when that was my aha moment, right? The moment of clarity where it's like, man, I want something different, and I'm fine paying for it. And it was one of the best decisions I've made. So, and I thought I was overpaying for that too, right? Market was crazy hot. I mean, I was getting, we'd already gotten beat out on a couple different opportunities, and I'm like, here we go again. We got it. No, I mean, it's appreciated like 40, 50 grand in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, you can't go wrong with buying property. I mean, you could buy a lot stupider things. At least I know I have in the past. You know what I mean? Cars, motorcycles,
cocaine, strippers, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Cocaine, all that good stuff. Right. We've done. No, I'm just kidding. I never did that.
Me neither.
No, me either.
No. But no, I mean, it sounds like you're trying to improve the quality of your life so you can perform better when you're at work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong if financially you think you can support it. Plus, this is the other thing too. Anytime I bought something, let's just say a truck, right? It's like, man, I don't know if I can afford this thing. It actually, what it did for me is it made me work harder because I didn't want to lose my truck.
Yeah.
Right. I performed harder. You know what I mean? I accommodated my clients harder, better. You know what I mean? So I could keep those current clients. I didn't want to, you know what I mean? And I didn't want people to think that I was getting in over my head either. So then in turn, that just made me work harder. You know what I mean? It still does. What I think sometimes does do stupid things. Like, so I cashed out a few rentals, about 8 rentals that I had. I paid cash for them over the years. And with the market being the way that it was or is, with the values of them, I cashed them out. And what I did with that money was I bought a commercial building, 5,700 square foot, used to be a Century 21 building about 4 months ago. And what I thought was, in my eyes, being in business as long as I have, I thought it was a power move, right? Like, fuck it. We're going to build a bigger facility to facilitate a bigger sales team, more admin, when most people I think are backing off on a lot of things right now, and they're holding their money because they're not sure what the market's going to do, blah, 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 blah. Well, where our location is now, we have 2 5,000 square foot buildings that we're in right now. The studio's in one of them right now, and we've outgrown it exponentially. Like between our productions here, so all the work vans, gutter trucks. We acquired a landscaping business about 5 years ago, so we got bobcats out there, dump trucks, all kinds of stuff that we have here. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy this building with this cash, kept the deed open. So then they gave me 6 months. That way I can get it reappraised. I know I'll get everything that I put into that building, the purchase price, the renovation price, and potentially worst case scenario would be is that I actually make some money on it. Yeah. And I'll have that cash, and then I'll be sitting on that cash. But I think the local roofing contractors or whoever is watching me right now is probably thinking, why is that guy spending that kind of money? First and foremost, it really wasn't my money because these rental properties have been paid for 10, 15 years, right? So I just pulled whatever cash out of them that I could. And meanwhile, I'm still collecting rent on these buildings that I cashed out. So, I mean, I don't think you could ever go wrong with real estate as long as you know someone that can teach you a little something about it, or that you do it or already know how to do it. I don't think you can go wrong. I really don't.
I got a question for you. So you brought up an interesting point. Did you buy them under a different entity and rent it back from your company so that you have that separation, but you also have that expense from your construction company?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. I did. I have what's called TCB rentals, and in this building here, I purchased it under a company called Rocket Group. So that way, there TC Backer Construction can rent it from the Rocket Group. Plus, it puts another layer between me and the rentals and the businesses.
Yeah, it was a good move.
Yeah, yeah. Plus, it's great for tax purposes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that I'm trying to say that I'm trying to get away with anything, but there's, you got to do what you got to do at times to try to save as much money as you can and or make money. You know what I mean? Smart.
I mean, there's rules of the game for a reason, right? So play by the rules, and there's always going to be ways to benefit within those rules and guidelines. So
yeah. I mean, my accountant suggested that. So Chris, Corey, I'm sorry.
I'm calling you Chris from now on.
All right, Corey. I mean, that's a great question, and a lot of people don't even think like that. Even if it takes like 3 days to start an LLC. It doesn't take long. At least my accountant can bust them out pretty quick for me whenever I need an LLC formed real quick. And that's what we did. I bought another business with the Rocket Group. That way there puts another layer between me and the company. God forbid, the exposure and the liability purposes, you want a layer between you and whatever it is that you're doing, like TC Backer Construction. We also have Backer Exteriors. There's a certain amount of work that we actually do with Backer Exteriors, and there's a certain amount of work that we do with TC Backer Construction, so that way we have 2 workers' comp, 2 unemployments, because if anybody gets injured, right, it doesn't affect it. It's like that one apple didn't tip the whole apple cart or whatever reason. I actually had a person years ago, one of our workers hit somebody walking across the street. You know what I mean? So things happen. I mean, you're in business long enough, things are going to happen. So you want to protect yourself and your company and your people and your family.
Facts.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation the other day with another smaller contractor. He was really upset because his insurance, his general liability went up. He's doing more in revenue, and his general liability went up, and he was really upset about it. And we have a group of contractors in the area that I get together, I network with them. We have breakfast together. Most of them are newer and they're smaller contractors. But, that's one of the things that somebody taught me early on is like, look, the idea is that you grow. And if you grow, you're gonna have to pay more to operate. But there's certain things that you want to spend money on. Insurance is one of them, because early on, like my first year in business, I wound up, I just didn't know how everything worked. A guy fell off one of my roofs, hurt himself, not bad, but he broke his ankle. He lawyered up and he sued me. Now, thank God I had a really good attorney, and he basically told the other attorney, he said, look, you can either settle for X amount of dollars, which was an obscenely low offer, or I'm going to tell my client to go ahead and close up shop and you guys get nothing, because I had set up my corporations correctly to be able to do that. Right. And so like that really provided a layer of protection for me, because the other attorney had no choice to settle. But I learned early on, make sure you're set up right, make sure you pay the right people, and make sure you have good insurances, because you're right, because things do happen and there's nothing you can do about it.
For sure. And insurance is definitely one thing you don't want to cut corners on, and always having a good business attorney. Not because if something hits the fan, but just someone that you can lean on and ask questions for, too, you know what I mean? Because I know our attorney, she, I got her on speed dial. I mean, there's a lot of things that I have my hands in or on. And if I'm not sure about something, I need to ask questions. I just had a conversation about that with someone the other day. It's like, I've spent my entire life not asking questions, right? Which is probably why I'm as dumb as I am today. And it's like, life is too goddamn short. So I'm going to start asking more questions, because I wanted everybody to think that I knew what the hell I was talking about. Half the time I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. And then Google came along.
But Ty, why don't you just ask those questions to a Facebook group full of contractors?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, they'll
You can do. Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah. So guys, whoever's out there listening, like, stop asking for tax advice in a Facebook group of any kind. But
Right.
There's a lot of value to Facebook groups, but there's also a lot of misinformation. So you don't want to go ahead and take legal or tax advice from somebody who's not an attorney or an accountant. It just doesn't make sense. You don't want roofing advice from me, I promise you. So you get a good attorney, get a good accountant, and get a good marketer.
Yeah, there you go. You definitely got to have a good marketer for sure. You got to ask questions. You got to have the right people, and that's where it's like, I don't know all the laws, the ins and outs. About LLCs or corporations and rentals and investments and things like that. That's where like my accountant comes into play. That's where we have a big investor that's in our area who got me in the game, and I've listened and watched a lot of what he's done. I've done work for him for 15 years, and I worked on a lot of his investment properties and kind of watched what he's done and asked him questions along the way. And most people are widely open and happy to share what their knowledge is. I mean, I know you are, Mike, and Corey, you appear to want to, I mean, we learn to be able to educate, right? At least for me, it's like the more that I know, the more that I get to teach somebody else. And that's the joy that I get out of things today. And it's like, anytime anybody asks me a question, like when we were at Wealth Builders, I talked to several contractors, people I didn't even know, but they felt like they knew me because of the podcast and things like that. And, so I had a conversation with a guy for about 30 minutes, and he was talking to me about, some things that we do. And I was a wide open book, man. And, he texted me, I don't know, a couple of days later and thanked me for like, man, thank you so much. I went ahead, I talked to so-and-so, this person I turned him on to, they signed me up right away. And just, I'm an open book, man. I feel like if anybody needs to know something, if I have the answer or my experience, my answer might not be the correct, but I'll share my experience with you. And how I handled certain situations, because I'll be honest with you, there's not much that I haven't put myself through, or there's not much that I haven't been through. When it comes to business or personal development or anything like that, I'm constantly trying to grow. I'm constantly trying to listen and learn. And I've learned to shut my mouth and listen more, right? Whether it be on the sales side of things, whether it be on the education side of things, and not afraid to ask questions, man. It's like it makes me dumb if I don't answer a question and there's no stupid questions. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great for people to utilize resources available to them to become better, to ask those questions and things like that. But like for those that are seeking information, I caution that for every Ty who knows an immense amount and is willing to volunteer the information and is willing to admit if he doesn't know something, there's 10 other people that will give you a definitive answer with a lot of conviction and have no fucking idea what they're talking about. So you just have to be like, context is important. And I guess, just always, just consider where your advice is coming from. That's it.
That's a good point too. That's a good point.
Yeah. I think, and to echo what you were just saying about, contractors that have been through some stuff. I mean, I've been in the business for 28 years. I've been a contractor or involved in contracting since I was 17 years old. And, I really was blessed. There's another contractor that's over in Orlando. He's got a good business. He's got a big business. He was gracious enough to take, a half an hour of his time the other day to talk to me on the phone because I had some questions about a service that we're rolling out, and he's doing really well with it. And he was an open book. And I try to do the same thing with these newer guys. It's like, look, in my area, I'm going to do what I'm going to do regardless if you're here or not. Like, you're not me helping you or me answering questions for you or anything. That's not going to harm me in any way whatsoever. It's actually going to make everybody better because they'll learn that other contractors are willing to share and network and help them. And then, they'll reciprocate. So the younger guys coming up will change the way, like, I was treated like shit early on in the bit. Like, everybody I worked for, every contractor I worked for, when I was new, learning the trades, like I got treated like shit. Like, I tell my wife some stories. I got locked into a porta potty. My second year roofing, I got locked into they locked me in the porta potty and then tucked the law and lifted it up and fucking left me there. Right. And they went to lunch. So I'm baking in the Florida sun in this porta potty lifted in the air and I can't get out, you know? And so to see the industry changing where people are actually willing to like network and help and not be so threatened by the people coming up is really great. I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, it's definitely a big change from when it was when we grew up in the industry for sure. Plus, I mean, 5 years ago, there wasn't that many, I'd say, roofing groups or even roofing conferences, right? Like there wasn't places that we could go. I know for Jan and I talk about this a good bit. What really opened our eyes was Wind the Storm about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Jan and I went to our first roofing conference, and you know, we're up here in South Central Pennsylvania, and you know, thinking we're kicking ass and taking names and kind of trying to dominate our little town of 50 people that we're in, and you know, we go to this Wind the Storm, right? And it's like, oh my God, like there's other roofers out there, you know, and they were opening up. Scott, oh crap, he owns Interstate Roofing, OG of storm chasing, bro. I mean, it's Scott. I can't think of his last name. Well, he was one of the speakers. Man, it just opened my eyes of like listening to him, you know, openly share his experience, strength, and hope, being in multiple states and how much revenue they were doing and how they were doing it. And, you know, especially when it came to the storm restoration and things like that, it just had really opened my eyes. And us 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have things like that. Like nobody was sharing information like they are today, nor did we have Google or YouTube or things like that to educate ourselves. But today, I mean, if you're not willing to put in the work, ask questions, pay attention, read books, go to roofing conferences and invest in yourself, that's kind of on you. That's kind of your fault. I mean, with all the information that's at our fingertips today, it's hard to not, I don't care what industry you're in. I mean, you can learn anything that you want to learn from just subscribing to a YouTube channel anymore. And it's like, just
digital agency.
That doesn't surprise me. You're probably one of the founders of YouTube.
Yeah, low key. I wish. We wouldn't be talking about my divestment property if I was a founder of YouTube. Promise you that.
Divestment. Love that. Is that an actual word?
Yeah, like to divest from something is like to part from it, to get out of it, right? So I'm getting out of my own money and fucking pouring it into 3 months of happiness in Tampa a year.
I just want to make sure.
And I get to get closer to this guy. And since he's so open to helping everyone in Tampa, I'm going to sell 5 more campaigns in Tampa here, and we're gonna. So we draw the line.
Yeah, I draw. There's a couple of things I draw the line at. One of them is you know, Mike marketing in Tampa, right? Because you know, we call it the secret South Shore sauce that we get from a Send Digital agency. So I'm not willing to share that, right? I don't want other guys competing in my market. And then the other one's my wife, but everything else, I might be happy to share.
Ty, let me ask you a question. Oh, go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you were.
I don't remember what it was.
I'll stare at you. We could just make this shit real uncomfortable for the audience.
Yeah. Did I mention you sound like shit?
Okay. Little known fact about Ty. What he'll do is he'll bring you on the podcast. You'll have like $1,000 microphone in front of you. You'll forget to turn it on because your name's Mike Stearns and you're an asshole. And then what he'll do is he'll tell you you sound great, and then you sound like you're podcasting from the Marianas Trench and the bottom of the ocean, and there's echoes, and yeah. So that was a little jab at the fact that I was upset with Ty for not telling me. You're too nice of a guy. That's all.
Listen, I thought you sounded fine.
Let's get one of the team members to cue the audio from that we could play for the audience.
Give us 7 minutes. We'll get on that.
Yeah, tell Vic I said what's up, and then also tell him that I want to hear the shit.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt. So let me ask you this: if you weren't roofing, if you didn't own a roofing company, if you had to start over right now today, and you couldn't do roofing or exteriors, like Ty, what the fuck would you do?
That's a good question. That is a good one. Ooh. Okay. So, well, many years ago, my uncle had retired from the military. He put his 20 in, and I think he retired at age 40. and
Okay.
was able to travel the country. Ended up getting some jobs, like local forest ranger jobs and stuff like that, like out in California at the Redwood Forest and a couple other places in Colorado and all over the place. And I kind of thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So maybe if I had my head on my shoulders back in the day, um, I may have went into the military, got my, age 20, get out when I was 40, be able
Sure.
to retire, get the benefits, the package, all that stuff, and then be able to work full time someplace else, having, that pension, that, health insurance package and stuff like that. Maybe that would be one thing that I would do. Um, I do know that when I was a kid growing up, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a comedian.
Mm.
So maybe I'd get into comedy. But I would say my true passion, what I really love and what I really enjoy to do is I love fishing, but not only just fishing, but teaching people how to fish and watching them catch fish. That has been a lifelong passion of mine. Is fishing and teaching people how to fish.
Well, you give them a fish, they eat for a day. You teach them to fish, they eat for life, right? You're out here
Exactly.
doing
That's
God's
that's my
work.
philosophy
Love
for
it,
sure.
dude. Yeah,
I'm glad
good.
you picked that up. But yeah,
Yeah.
what would you have done if the roofing industry hasn't found you or
If I was
didn't
like
find you?
excommunicated tomorrow and everyone banned me from the roofing industry, and I got
Yeah,
canceled,
yeah.
I'd probably sell crack.
Would you?
No.
Oh, I've done that.
I have a real estate license, and I tested out like a system and process. So I had a background in doing collections, and why I performed well in collections was I would take a strategic approach to find people, and you do things like skip trades. You take their social, you take their address, you start reversing these things, draw lines back to this one person. And it's like you get to investigate. And I became really good at that. So during COVID, what I did is I got my license to practice real estate just to kind of, for fun, whatever. And what I did was I pulled like all these expired listings, and then I batched them out and sent them to be skip traced and find cell phone numbers directly for the owners and things like that. I cold called through, I don't know, 30 different listings, expired listings, and sold 3 of them, right, in a couple hours. So I think I would probably do that. I would do some real estate, and I would probably put together a course. Everyone loves putting together courses now. I would put together a course where I would go to people and I would train them on like that system and process. I think it's really easy to make money in real estate. People are just fucking lazy in that space. Some, and it's been my experience that more than are lazy than aren't. And if you're a realtor and you're not lazy, I'm sorry. Please don't be upset with me. But I'm just speaking from my experience. I'm not stating this as a matter of fact. So I think that's what I would do.
Yeah, real estate's great market.
I think I would do something in sales, for sure. Real estate's a good one. We used to buy distressed properties, flip them. That was fun. That's where I really got my chops on like learning sort of how to do everything. Because I started out working for a framing crew, then I roofed, and then I got lucky enough. My family started buying properties, and so I was a contractor, right? So I got thrown in the house, and I destroyed a lot of houses. So I'm sorry for anybody that bought some of my hack work when I was learning, but yeah, that was fun, man. I liked doing it. I really did. So I probably would have stayed in house flipping and real estate. Yeah.
All good trades, all good industries. There's a lot of people still flipping houses, and yeah, there are some good realtors and there's some bad realtors. It's like any other industry. A lot of people will think like you said there, Mike, it's a quick way to make money. So I think a lot of people that shouldn't be getting involved with, especially probably 3, 4, 5 years ago when the market was smoking hot, I think that's when oh man, I'm sure there's spurts every 5, 10 years. It goes through this thing where, a lot of people want to get into real estate and start selling realty. But like you said, if you want to be a good realtor, I mean, some of the wealthiest people in the world are into real estate. I mean, let's not kid ourselves, whether, you're an investor or a realtor. I know we have a predominant area around here. It's called Wyndham Hills and a couple other places where, the doctors, lawyers, and realtors live. The successful realtors who have been doing it for a long time live up in Wyndham Hills, right? In some of the biggest houses in York County. And I've put a lot of roofs on their houses. I put a lot of siding on it because I was by trade, I was an installer. And I think that's what, I love the roofing industry, and I'm glad that it had found me. Going back to, what would I have done? It's like, that was a really hard question for me to answer, because I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I don't know what else would have been as lucrative for me to be able to have an impact on my family and those people that are around me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, fishing, yeah, is cool. And I actually do that today. I take a group of people out a couple times a year fishing, and I show them how to fish. And we get into a couple different tournaments. So because of roofing, I'm able to do things like that and have an impact on people's lives. But I don't know if working at Lowe's or, anything like that would allow me to have, the revenue to be able to have an impact on people's lives that we have today. I mean, as of yesterday, we're impacting people's lives in 9 different states. And I'm not saying that to break out and show you how big my sock is, but that's my goal. That's my mission. I'm trying to impact as many people's lives as I can. What's that?
There's that comedian coming out right there.
Right. Right. It is educational and entertaining, right? Behind
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah.
But that's my goal. And I've put people over profit. Like, I don't know how many times. You know what I mean? But somehow, some way, it's come back tenfold every single time. Every time, whenever I could remove myself from self and take my shirt off my back and give it to somebody else, even when I was at my weakest point, even when I was at like my least healthiest point, I was still willing and able to help people, even though it put me out, or it could have even potentially put my family out. Right. But it's come back tenfold. So I don't know what else I could have done to have such an impact on people's lives. And it's like, I don't even like talking about it. I just do it, and I like to show it. Right. Like, I don't even like to talk about this topic because God forbid I fail. Right. But I honestly believe God didn't bring me this far to drop me on my head either.
This is you're speaking my language right now, man. I was just talking to, all my sales staff about this. Is the principle of reciprocity, right? Like, when you give of you and you do it just for the sake of doing it, there's something about that always comes back to you tenfold. Now, I think the caveat to that is if you're doing it with the wrong motives, people are going to pick up on that, and that stuff just backfires every single time. But if you're like truly want to like give of yourself, there's something about the universe that always gives back to you. And I love this topic because, you mentioned getting into the roofing industry, and you don't know that if you were doing something else, if you would have been successful or as successful, right? But my experience is that people that have that mindset, and they have that depth of character, and I think even more importantly, the work ethic that most of the people in the roofing industry that I know have, they're gonna be successful, right? Wherever they're put. And we were put in the right place. I got into the roofing industry the same reason most of us got into the roofing industry, because I was a degenerate and couldn't do anything else, right? So it's amazing to meet all these people that have a very similar path, a very similar set of character attributes, and they seem to all be pretty successful, and they share a lot of the same story, and they share a lot of the same perspective. It's really cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
Well, I like this topic too. It's funny, you and I, we had a long conversation about this particular topic, and it's like, when is it okay to talk about like things that you do? Like, there's a difference between like, somebody standing there with a dog and a sign at the end of the expressway and you filming the fact that you're giving them $1, right? But there's a big difference between that and like a company sharing the fact that they helped out, this person because of a charity drive. Because the thing is like, you can't parse out motive. You don't know if this person intentionally just posted this to get some sort of positive benefit from branding as a result of the perception. And you can't gauge the influence, the positive impact that you would potentially make by setting an example in your community to be like, look at what we did. Set the fucking bar higher. You guys need to do your part, right? And it's always an interesting conversation to have with people, like what is okay, what isn't okay, because it's very subjective, right? But there was a very particular circumstance that we were talking about, and we didn't end up agreeing on it, did we?
No, we disagreed.
We disagreed.
And that's
So-
okay. You guys are still sitting in the same room.
diversity of thought is such an amazing thing, right? Because he could tell me, I don't agree with you at all. And it's like, I respect his opinion. It's okay. You don't have to agree with me. And just because I don't change the way that I feel doesn't mean that I no longer like you as a person, or that I think less of you, or I don't value your opinion. It's just, we don't agree. Like, we can disagree and still be friends, right?
You can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And still be friends. You guys are still sitting there.
Look at us.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, he pays me a lot of money to sit here, so that's not a fair statement.
And you better agree with him then.
Yes, sir.
right.
Yes,
Listen,
sir.
right. I keep trying to tell him that, right? You got to agree with me. I pay you a lot of money.
Right.
No, I think that, you know, I think the key is at least respecting the other person's point of view, as long as it's not completely batshit crazy, right? I understood what he was saying, whether I agree with it or not, that doesn't matter. I have a perspective of what I think altruism should look like, in which, if we could talk about altruism, I don't think true altruism actually exists, but I do think there's a way that you can position yourself where you don't have to be showy. And if you're not being showy about it, I feel it's a little more genuine. That's just my perspective.
Yeah.
And like, we could talk about what it was, right? I guess, like, let's talk about the specific circumstance.
I don't remember exactly what it was.
So it's important to me to give back, and it's not important to me to like, look what I'm doing. But like, I want to make sure that I was giving back. And I was like, as a consumer, how can I make people feel good about doing business with our company? Aside from providing an amazing experience and getting great results for people, like, what would excite me as a consumer in doing business with a company? And I was like, well, we do a consult fee. When somebody reaches out and they want to do business with Ascend, like, the first thing that we do is educate them. I spend 2 to 3 hours with them. It costs them $1,500. And then we credit that towards whatever they buy. So as a part of that consult, what I wanted to do was give 50% of that to a charity of their choosing, because what matters to me, Ty, might be incredibly different than what matters to you, than what matters to Janet, or what matters to Rocket, or anybody else that's watching this, right? So it would make me feel really good if somebody was charging me for something like, yeah, you choose where this 50% goes, right? Like, we want to give it to somebody, and that ensures that seamlessly we're consistently giving back to things that matter to people. And that makes me feel good. But it's like, how do you position that? Like, how do you have that conversation? Is it something we should talk about in public? Is it not something we should talk about? And should you just send a card after the fact? But for me, it's like the beauty of it is you getting to pick as a consumer where that $750 goes to a cause that matters for you. I just don't know the logistics of it. It might be a logistical nightmare. So the easier route would be like, you know what, I'm going to pick something that matters to me, and I'm going to give the $750 to that charity. And like, that's still a really good thing. But for me, it's more so like, do it for the person that's engaging with your company. And if you let them pick where the money goes, I would value that as a consumer. And that's usually how I try to make choices.
Okay.
Not
I
that
can
it's right or wrong, but whatever.
Yeah. I can respect that. We had Deshaun Bryant on the show. Now, we've had him on a couple times, but the first time that he came on, he was on probably about 2.5 years ago. And we had a great conversation. And I tend to, not advertise certain things. And whatever we were talking about, I had made that comment, and he was like, "Are you being humble or are you hiding?" Right. So like, whenever we do something, and I'm going to use this past week as an example. Okay. So I saw our team post some pictures of us as a group, receiving an award last week. Right. So I'm thinking, I felt like, a couple of things went through my head, right? Was, I don't want to show everybody how big my sock is again. Right. But then I start to think, well, how fair is it to the team, right? Our whole entire team, not just the team of us that went down there. Unfortunately, I couldn't take the entire team, or else I would have, to accept this award. Right. So how fair is it for me to hide? Right. this award that the company had earned, right? So that's something that I need to take a look at. So at some point in time when I get a minute, and unfortunately down there in Austin, I didn't have very good cell phone reception, and I really wanted to sit down and what's that?
It was so bad.
Oh, it was so horrible.
Yeah.
It was bad. So sometime this week, I'm going to sit down when I get a minute, and I want to post something really nice about our team and how they earned this award. So there was two things that I was feeling that I felt guilty because I couldn't take the whole team down there to receive this award. And how selfish of me would it be if I don't post something about this award? Right. And it's something that they earned. And I'm not doing it to show everybody, the world, ooh, God, look at us with this crystal piece of shit. You know what I mean? But the team earned that thing, and it's pretty prestigious. Only 1.5% of us can even be master elite contractors, and let alone win an award for that, right? The team did that. I didn't do that. You know what I mean? I should have just sent the team, not me. Should have went down there. But there are certain times and places to post things, right? Like there's a lot of things that we do that we don't post, but there's a lot of big things that we do post, right? And the 21 turkey salute, and this is kind of segue into marketing and branding a little bit in a non-traditional way, I guess, right? And my theory about branding isn't your logo. Your brand is your past, previous, and current clients, right? Screaming from the rooftops, TC Backer. And let's not forget our team out in public's eye, screaming from the rooftops at these community functions, how proud they are of the company that they work for doing these charitable events, right? And we're not doing it. We didn't start doing them because of notoriety or a marketing stunt or anything like that. We started them because my mom had a legacy and I wanted to be able to fill those shoes, and it had nothing to do with a marketing stunt, but I had no idea when we started this what it was going to do for our culture and our brand and why people wanted to go with TC Backer Construction. I had no idea of the impact that it was going to have on the community, our company, and our industry as a whole. If we can make, if we're doing good and other companies see us doing good and they want to mock or model what we're doing, we're only going to make our industry better.
That's a different, I think for me, that's a different vein of promotion, right? You have a bunch of people that work for you. And, one of the things that I take really seriously and I'm glad to hear you do too, is like, these people's livelihoods are at stake. I'm responsible for making sure that these people have a good company that they can come to. They have stability. It's how they feed their families. And, the success of the company is the sum total of all of those people's effort, right? And I think it's great to go ahead and let that shine and promote that. And, let these people be proud of what they do. And as you as the leader, absolutely, I think should promote that. I think where the conflict for me was with the conversation with Mike, it's not about giving to charity. Giving to charity is unbelievably great. I mean, we give to charity every week. I mean, we have a certain percentage of our paychecks that we give to charity. But the conflict for me is when you use that as trying to attract people that may or may not have done business with you, not on the merits of your company, but on the merits of what you do in terms of like giving, look at what we do. We take the moral high ground. We, do this. I know Mike really well, so I know his motives, and that's why I'm able to disagree with him and understand where he's coming from, because I know he's a good guy and I know he would give that away anyway. But I think I did a training a couple years ago at a K-Biz. I went to a kitchen and international, because they have some actually really good sales training at those. So I was sitting in the class, and the guy was talking about promoting your company and aligning yourself with a charity in order to promote yourself in the community. And I'm like, that just feels gross, right?
Sounds gross.
It sounds gross. And but this is a huge event in Las Vegas, and they're teaching this, and I'm like, this is just gross to me, right? So that's where the conflict was. It's not that I think that giving back to charity or or your clients being able to select where they want their money to go, I think that's amazing. It's the promotion where you otherwise, as a company, don't have the merits to attract those people. That's where the conflict was for me.
Yeah. And like you said, you know my circumstance, and like the people that are going to come to us are going to come to us. We don't have a sales team. Like all the sales come through me, and it's through people referring me. Like it's fantastic. So I don't take like offense to that. It's fine. Like, and I could definitely see where he's coming from. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
We're gonna make it work.
it is all good.
It's all good.
I'm going to take this second here to shout out our loyal viewers here. It seems like we got a bunch of people in here that follow us every week. And I know I've gotten away from shouting them out. I see Derek in there, Angie Yingling, Michael Hall, Glenn Orr, Victorino was watching, believe it or not. Dan Barker, good to see you. Jana, honey, love you. Zach Fisher, David KX, behind the tool belts watching. Imagine that. Ray, good to see you. Lauren, good to see you. Corey King. Heather Evans, good to see you. Hook Agency, good to see you. Oscar, good to see you, brother. Tony saying, good to see you. I just like that. We used to do that a lot, and I want to kind of get back to the basics so we don't ever have to go back to them. So I just wanted to shout out our loyal viewers and, of course, our sponsors, which I already did. Lead Scout, who's a big promoter and cheerleader for Behind the Tool Belt and Hook Agency, and, of course, TC Backer. Love every single person. Our loyal viewers, our team, a lot of people on there are on our team. And, and I don't know if I said this enough when we were on the road doing this. We couldn't have gone on the road with Behind the Tool Belt if it wasn't for TC Backer Construction and the entire team. And I mean the entire team. Everybody has done such a phenomenal job. I would have never been able to imagine years ago that I would have been able to basically go on the road for what, 12 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, since December, the week before December. I'm sorry, 2 weeks before Christmas is when my journey started on the road. Guess that would have been last year, right? Or December this year. I don't know, man. It's been a long journey. But anyhow, not that I wasn't working, not that I wasn't doing stuff, but a big shout out to TC Backer, the entire family up there at the shop. You guys know who I'm talking about. And not to take the show hostage, but I did want to get in there and say that publicly to everybody, that I appreciate everybody and love you guys, and I do. So
Yeah.
Anyhow, back to our regularly scheduled.
Yeah. How fucking dare you on your show? You say thanks to the people that tune in and the folks that help make it happen.
Thank you for supporting that.
Yeah.
Right.
So you mentioned non-traditional marketing, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things that work. Like we focus Google Ads, SEO, right? Custom websites. And that's great. And there's other things that are out there that work and don't work and whatever, but it's so funny because sometimes there's such hot takes on certain things where like context is important. What are your expectations? Where are you putting your money, and how are you deploying it, and when? So like non-traditional marketing, I think like phone books, right? Like phone books, what? Double truck, 2-page ads, like old school marketing where like it used to be so simple. And it's so funny. Like, I don't know, maybe 1 out of 20 people. So 5% of people I talk to, like, I wish that it was just like it was fucking 20 years ago. And I could just spend more money, get the front position and the heading at roofing. And there you knew you were going to get whatever, 800 calls that year. But it's like phone books still work in some places. Like I have a client that I actively advise to renew his phone book advertising because like we also take like a consultative approach and try to take a holistic perspective of what you're doing in advertising and maximize those returns through, branding, being clear, concise, consistent, and all these things, and help you make good choices as a strategic partner that you're marketing with. And, we have a tracking number on all his ads. He has the 2-page ad. He has like 3 1-page ads under different headings. He has a little corner of the front cover called the snipe. And he makes money off it. A couple hundred calls a year. And if you break that down pound for pound for, I think he spends like $10,000 or something. It's like, what are we doing? You're paying like $50 a lead. That's fantastic. Why would you get rid of it? Right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
But like if you ask 100 marketers about like a phone book, they'd be like, fuck is that? No way. And maybe some of them are just so young. I'm getting old, right? I'm aging. I'm not the spring chicken I once was, Todd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. And David Summerly's got a great question there. Once Vic pulls it up here, I can see it. What's the best form of cheap or free guerrilla marketing when trying to build a brand for an incredible product people simply need to know about? That's a great question. I love guerrilla marketing. What's your spin on it, guys?
Do you mind?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. go for
Um,
it.
I started my business in Tampa, brand new company. Nobody knew about us, but I knew that I was going to provide one of the better customer experiences for my customers. I didn't have really very much money when I started. This was prior to getting Mike involved. My first year, I was kind of out there flapping in the wind, and it was a nightmare. But so be careful. But what I did was I went out and I beat the streets, man. So a lot of people in the industry hate realtors. A lot of people in the industry don't know how to talk to insurance brokers. A lot of people in the industry don't want to talk to home inspectors. A lot of people in the industry do not want to go out and cold call businesses that you might be able to help and they might be able to help you. And so one day I was sitting with a realtor friend of mine, and she said, "Why doesn't everybody use you?" Right? She's like, "You're great. You've helped me out of so many jams." And I had that light bulb moment. I was like, you know what? I need to take the same approach with these referral partners as I do with homeowners. I need to educate them, but I need to come from their vantage point, what's important to them, and figure out how I can solve their problems. And so I came up with a pitch. Actually, he helped me with it. I came up with a pitch, and I went out and I just started cold calling brokerages and real estate brokerages and home inspectors and all of these people. Hey, can I sit down with you? Can I bring you lunch? Can I see how I can help you make your life better? Right. So I figured out who the people were. I figured out how I can appeal to them by coming from a place that makes sense to them, which is their vantage point. And then how can I fit in there and make their life easier? So the methodology, no matter what you're selling, is always going to be the same. What's going to change is who your target audience is, who you're trying to appeal to, and then figuring out how to pitch from their perspective and solve their problems. Here is the key. If you go ahead and you start making some of those relationships, you better fulfill your end of it and be prepared to go the extra mile, even when it looks like you might not be getting something out of it, because it's up to us to develop that relationship and show our value up front. And then those people that will do business with you and see value in you they'll follow suit with you. And so long story short, now we have, I would say about 10 or 15 brokers with a lot of agents that send us all their business. They're probably good for about $1 million a year for us.
Right on.
Yeah. I don't spend $1. Well, I take them lunch, but I don't really spend much money at all.
Right. And that sounds like you stuck with the basics. Like I touched on earlier, and that's the thing with a lot of us contractors who've been in business for a minute. We tend to get away from the basics. And if you don't get away from the basics, you don't have to go back to them. And I think that rings truer now than it ever had before. And that's kind of why I think this topic came up, is like that traditional or non-traditional or old school. How about old school ways of marketing, right? Like, referrals, a referral system and stuff like that. And hey, Mike, grab me that Post-it book that's over on that right behind you. Up right over there. Let me see that. So what we've done is to and I like the term guerrilla marketing because it sounds very aggressive, and I tend to get very aggressive with things, especially neighborhoods. I get a phone call in a neighborhood, I own that neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And how we do that is when that phone call comes in, we're linked to an app called Lead Scout. And when that call comes in, we get a list of 20 owner occupied houses, addresses that are within that neighborhood of where that lead came in. So what we do in the app is we go out and we qualify or disqualify as our guys go out and canvass the area. And we also get a Post-it pad note that has a QR code on there. And so when you qualify, that will launch a drip campaign, 2 postcards and 1 handwritten note, right? They also take 5-yard signs with them. Appointment comes in, they run that lead, they put 5 yard signs out, they go out, they canvass the neighborhood, they launch the drip campaign, and they put Post-it notes on it, because let's face it, a homeowner that has no idea who you are will not call you unless they have 11 to 13 touch points. They have to see you someplace 11 to 13 times if they don't know who you are before they'll even call you. So what we try to do is fill that up. If I can bang out 13 touch points for 20 neighbors where that one lead came in, then we're doing, instead of waiting around for the phone to ring for those other 19 neighbors to call, we're going to let them know that we're in the neighborhood. Between yard signs, Post-it notes, and a drip campaign is how we do our guerrilla marketing. I don't care if you have a website. If you're doing marketing like that, as long as you have a phone number, or I guess you need a website. But what we've also done, and I'm going to plug not only Lead Scout, but I'm going to plug Roofle. We put the Roofle QR code, which will take you to a landing page, and they can get an instant estimate in 30 seconds.
Yep.
That's what we've been doing for the past couple months.
It's funny because, you know, when I started working with Mike, he got my GMB optimized. I'm sorry, my LSA, my local service ads through Google. He got them just firing crazy, right? So I was literally getting 15 calls a day, and I was like, oh, this is easy. And then all of a sudden, they caught up to us, and they started dispersing the leads, and it dropped off. Like, I was getting 2 calls a day, and I called him, and I was freaking out. And he's like, dude, you have to diversify. And so we started really hitting hard on owning those neighborhoods. And I can't tell you how important what you just laid out verbatim is. Like, if you go into a neighborhood, you have to have that mindset. This is going to be my neighborhood. But more than that, your sales team has to be trained really well on how to execute that. Right.
Absolutely.
We came from a time where there was no Google. I mean, I was trained, like, I was trained on the 6-pack, right? So, or the dirty dozen, right? So you go to the 6 houses and, hey, pardon my dust, those are tried and true. They work. They've been working for a long time, right? And you supplement that with your Google, your local service ads, your Facebook, your neighborhood groups, all of those different things. If you're not diversified in your marketing strategy, you're dead in the water, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wish you would have had somebody that told you that was going to happen if you didn't start diversifying earlier.
Well, I'm a hard head.
What I'll say is that, and that is not atypical, is like, you always want to have diversified lead flow, because Google will do dumb shit like pull the rug from under you, like they did with Corey with local services. And I was beating that drum for a while, but it doesn't seem like a big deal, and it seems improbable until that shit happens, right? Mm-hmm. Now they pull the rug. Luckily, he was in a place where you had a backlog, so it wasn't the end of the world. But not everyone is that fortunate. So if you're a young company relying on something like local service ads, and they happen to shuffle the deck on you, and you go from getting 4 calls a day to 1 every 4 days, it's a big fucking problem. Right. Yeah. So you just try to diversify how you're acquiring leads. Right. And I guess to answer the question that David put out, I would say grit, grind, hustle, whatever you want to call that, stick to that shit. That's the best free way to get people to learn about you. I find that people abandon that shit way too early. They become entitled and I shouldn't have to do this, or and then on the other side, some people they hold on to the vine too long, right? And they refuse to start delegating, and they start bogging down themselves and their ability to grow, because now they won't just trust somebody else to do the job. It also depends on what product, though. Like Ugly Roof, right? Corey does Ugly Roof. A lot of other people do Ugly Roof. Shout out to Bros and Ty Meredith. But maybe something for that is you find one of your real estate agent friends or strategic partners that you've developed a relationship with, and find out when a super hot house is going on the market. And maybe you do a fucking free roof rejuvenation during an open house where there's going to be 150 people in and out of that. And you get people asking questions, and your marketing, your truck and trailer are parked outside. It's what the fuck is going on here, right? Maybe you put a QR code, whatever, right? I don't know. It depends on what product you're talking about. But I'd say the best thing that you could do as far as getting the word out is just hustle your ass off.
Absolutely. Yeah. It does come down to hustle, and mixing old school with the new school, and if you have a little bit more money, You can do a email campaign, to those same neighbors. You can geo target with Facebook ads as well. I don't know how many people know that you can get real granular on the area, that you can pepper with Facebook ads and things like that, especially in gated communities. Tim Brown has a question here. It says, how do you hammer certain areas after a storm and work with your agent on that? And I'm assuming he means your marketing agent.
I'm 100% retail, so I can't answer that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would do the same thing that we're doing right now. You know what I mean? If you're going to own that neighborhood, get some yard signs out there, get some door hangers, post-it notes, knock some doors, do a drip campaign with snail mail, do some email campaigns, do some Facebook campaigns. I mean, I unfortunately, I'm a fisherman and I cast the freaking net. You know what I mean? And it all works. It all works. I see an ROI on everything, man. I throw the net out there, and that's the approach I take, especially moving into a new market. And then I start to peel things back once that recognition and that authority is built.
Yeah, I'll to answer Tim's question. That's a great question, Tim. I'd say communicate is the first thing you need to do. You need to talk to the people that are responsible for putting your ads out and shaping the way that people are perceiving you when they're looking for your products and services. Because, so for instance, if a storm hits right on the other side of the state line, right, you could say, Mike, I want you to change my ads to make sure that we're hitting these area codes the next state over. And it's like, okay, fantastic. But if I'm sending them to the same landing page that doesn't represent the fact that we service that state, there's not familiarity there, they're less likely to convert. Right. So you want to make sure, like, just that small little nuance of making sure that, hey, we have a landing page that's optimized for the experience for the people that are looking for our services where we're running the ads. Like, that's an easy to miss detail if you don't have a good marketing agency. And if you're not communicating with your marketing agency and leaving it up to them to use like intuition as to best how to run your campaign.
That's a good point, because I would have never really thought of that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Tracking numbers,
Yeah.
Local tracking numbers, making sure that you expand your LSA ads, all of that stuff.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, you should, when you're like a storm hits and it's, not right in your backyard where there's actually going to be changes to what you're doing. Like, you should look at every facet of advertising and marketing that you're doing and making sure that it's representative of the fact of like, hey, we're encompassing these folks with our ads, and that branding is clear, it's concise, it's consistent, and it's fucking relevant for the people that you're trying to get to buy from you, right? And like I said, it's those small details, devil's in the details. It's those small details that can be overlooked, and it could crush. It could be the difference of 1 out of 10 people that come to your site converting and 1 out of 30, right? And that's a big deal. And then making sure that there's synergy between all those things that you're doing, and it's like an echo chamber of like TC Backer's the fucking best, South Shore Roofing and Exteriors is the best, Ascend Digital Agent. No, I'm just kidding. But like I said, you want to make sure that it's an echo chamber of whatever it is that is your brand. It's being screamed loud and proud in a relevant way, a contextually relevant way to the target audience.
Right, you're trying to create an omnipresence.
Yep.
Can we talk about one of the other really overlooked pieces of this? And you hit on it earlier, right? You said, not only do I want to have my customers screaming TC Backer is the best, you want to have the people working for you screaming that TC Backer is the best. Because when you're going into a newer market, and we just had this happen, Hurricane Ian hit down in South Florida. We don't, we kind of came in after the storm because we deal directly with the homeowners. We're not going to help you with their claim. We're not going to do any of that stuff, right? We're going to sign a contract directly with the homeowners. But I had brought in some guys from out of state because we all needed sales guys. And what I quickly found was they didn't have any relationship to the company, right? And so they were just looking at it as a transaction. So I sent 2 of my guys down there to sell, and they murdered it. I mean, they just murdered it because they knew the company, they loved the company, and they wanted people, and people bought into that really easily, right? So those small details are huge. And then we started getting in my first 3 roofs we did down there. I made a deal with the homeowners. I said, listen, I'm going to give you $1,000 off of your roof. Okay. But what I want you to do is anytime and I asked them, are you in these Facebook groups, neighborhood Facebook groups? And they said, yes. And I said, anytime somebody asks for a referral, if we did a good job, please shout us out. And the homeowners were like, hell yeah. Right. So, I gave up $1,000 on the roof, which, not a big deal. And like clockwork, man, people from Facebook groups, started calling my sales guys. This, so-and-so recommended you. Do. So you talk about casting that wide net. It's huge. Yeah. Yeah.
I call it the marketing roof. If you get into a neighborhood and it's a corner lot and, sometimes you got to give a discount to get in there and have them allow you to keep your yard sign out there an extra amount of time. And of course the referrals and stuff, and maybe give them a kickback on referrals. Like, hey, each time, one of the neighbors call me because you put in a good word for me, give them a, $100 Lowe's gift card or something like that. There's nothing wrong with being creative like that and taking one on the chin to get in the neighborhood. Because let's face it, it's not easy to always, to make the sale. Right. And sometimes you got to get a little creative on, ways that you can get in these neighborhoods, especially if it's a higher end neighborhood. They tend to choose to not want to cut corners, but a lot of times, some of them want to, but a lot of times when you get into those higher end markets, especially down in the Tampa area, there's a lot of old money there. Right. So when you can get in with that one corner lot, that guy and gal, on the corner, and they're screaming from the rooftops, like, hey, Corey Combs, with Combs Construction, he did our roof. They did a fantastic job. They gave us a discount or whatever it is. Go with Corey.
Yeah,
That's leave that part out, please. But and I don't give a shit if they do, because it's really, at the end of the day, isn't it? It's not about the quantity, or it's about the quantity of the jobs that you can get in that job. It's not always about making a grand slam on the house anyhow, and being fair with your price, like not railing people over the head. Right. If you can strike a deal with an HOA or whatever, if it's one of those neighborhoods, it's like, why not take $1,000 off a roof? You just landed 19 more roofs after that.
So I got a great story about that. So, we're down in Port Charlotte right now. And the city of Port Charlotte had a bunch of their buildings that were, damaged during the hurricane. Mm-hmm. And so, they went out and they got a bunch of different bids. Man, they're going to use us, and we're doing 17 of their buildings. And they're, from, 600 square agricultural buildings to, some of their offices. And the reason they went with us is because the manager that's overseeing this said everybody came in with these obscene prices. He's like, we've gotten roof work done over the years, and everybody that gave us bids was so far out of what the normal market was, and you guys came in with pricing. And I told the guy, I said, look, we're charging almost the same pricing when the hurricane hit than we were before. I mean, it's a little bit higher because we have more costs, but I didn't mark everything up to $750 a square for a IKO shingle roof, right? All these other guys from out of state did that. And so the people that live there were like, okay, these local guys are trying to take care of their community. I have to be here when they're gone. You know what I mean? I've got to look at these people at the face of the grocery store. My sales guys got to feel good about what they just sold the homeowner. So that's a great point. You can't look at hitting a home run. Sometimes you got to give up some to gain a lot.
Mm-hmm,
Nothing wrong with the ground rule or what? Yeah.
Right. I mean, we still have clients today that I started out in doing business with that we still have today because of that, because I am fair, because it's playing the long game.
Yeah. I mean, they give us $1 million project because everybody else wanted to slap their head on one single deal, and we gave them fair pricing. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me. And here's the funny part, like our margins are great. Like our margins on that are great. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? Mm-hmm. So that like feast or famine mindset is a killer to these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. Cause we're, of course we're actually in a pretty good market here. We're about 40 miles north of Baltimore. and we cover, the Maryland, Pennsylvania, up to Delaware into New Jersey market. So we're pretty saturated. And there's a cost of living difference between Maryland and PA. It's more expensive to live down in Maryland, but I think about some of the prices that these guys are throwing at these people down there, and it's like, I know there's overhead, and it's like, I think as long as you really know your numbers, where are your numbers at, and where are you comfortable at? Is everybody getting
Right.
fed well? Your sales team, your production team, is the company making a healthy profit so we can afford health insurance and 401ks and all of those luxuries of why people or somebody would want to come and work here and maybe someday retire. I think knowing your numbers, which could be a totally different podcast, and I don't want to get too far out in the weeds on that, but if you know your numbers, it's not about the grand slams and coming in and just wrecking people. It's about being fair, being transparent, and doing a good job. So then again, that right there is probably your best part of marketing. You know what I mean? Like, it really starts right there. That's the impression of you're trustworthy
Yes.
and you're transparent, and that will go further than any Google ad or map that you could throw any kind of money at. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, that's the best way you can market yourself, is just do a good effing job. I'm trying
Yeah.
to tone down because I'm trying to get GAF to sponsor me, so I'm trying to hold back on the fuck bombs or the F bombs. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, no, GAF's been a great partner for us. We're a master elite, so I love GAF.
Yeah.
John, it's funny about the knowing your numbers thing. You're right. We could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
It's sad that a lot of these companies don't know their numbers, and because of that, they estimate out of fear, and they estimate out of like, we got to make as much money as possible here. But John Bros taught me something pretty interesting a couple weeks ago. We always used to give a financing price and we would give a cash price, right? So the financing price was marked up 10 or 12% or whatever we needed to cover the financing. He said, that's not the right way to do it. He said, what you have to do is you have to take all of your finance deals over the year, figure out what that percentage was, and then bury that across every estimate you do. That way, your estimate isn't so much higher on the finance deal and so much lower that you're going to lose that finance deal because it's too high, right? The price is too high.
Smart.
And I was like, that's freaking brilliant. He called it something. I don't remember what it was called, but I was like, that is brilliant. And he's like, what you'll find is if you amortize that out across every single deal you sell, you'll figure out you're actually going to be a little bit more profitable because you've marked up your margin on your
non-finance deals.
Yeah, on your non-finance deals, and you've covered, without being exorbitantly high, all your finance deals. And so more people are likely to buy from you. And I was like, that's brilliant. So again, another shout out to a great contractor that just has been an open book, man. I have a great relationship. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good nugget, and we can definitely apply that to our business model as well too, because we unfortunately are because it was the mindset that we had. Our financing is a little more expensive because of the dealer fees and the financing cost and stuff like that, but that we don't charge any more than that. And then of course our cash price is whatever percentage, a little less, because we're not adding the dealer fees and things into that. And let's just say it's 7%, right? All in on our financing charges. So then we would divide that amongst 300 jobs, whatever that is. I like that. I like that. That way it's clean and it's fair. Yeah, it's fair. And it's transparent.
And it's 2.5 or 3% across the board instead of 9% on cash, or because then people get a little weird. You say, okay, well, I can give you the cash price. Now you give them the cash price, and they're like, oh, this guy's negotiating. Right. So now they can get funny and try to get more money off. Right. So, when he told me that, I was like, man, that's brilliant. Right.
Yeah.
Again, we've been extremely successful, but you mentioned it earlier. You have to stay teachable. You have to.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure, man. That's what it's all about for the longevity of your company. And you as a human being is just remain teachable. And like you said earlier, like, I've learned to, and I'm not perfect at it, but, put the cotton in my mouth and take it out of my ears.
I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just listen. Listen and ask questions, remain teachable. That's the biggest thing. Biggest. Well, guys, we've been on here for almost an hour and 20 minutes.
Invoice is on its way.
Invoice is on the way. That's right. Checks in the mail, homie.
My man.
Love it.
That's right.
I appreciate you having me on, my friend.
Me
Yeah,
too.
same.
Always a pleasure. Yeah,
Yeah.
Corey, really good to meet you
Me
face
too.
to face. I hear good things about you. I know you guys are down there kicking ass and taking names and doing it the right way. So
Yes.
kudos to you.
Thank you.
You got a good partner over there in Michael Stearns. He's a great dude. I love his energy, his transparency, and what I like about Mike the most is that he wears his emotions right here.
Yeah, he does.
Mm.
So where he's at. There's no
Listen, we're working on it in therapy, so I don't know how long that'll remain the same. I'm also stubborn, so someone called me pig-headed, so I don't know if it's likely to change or not. But my therapist tells me I got to work on it. So
You're definitely not paying them enough money.
yeah.
Your therapist, that is. Right on. Well, good. Awesome freaking show. I look forward to seeing you guys somewhere along the way here. Just episode 170. Can't believe it that we made it this long. Obviously, we've done hundreds more of these things, but for our Wednesday night 7 p.m. behind the tool belt, man, Eastern Standard Time, we appreciate everybody chiming in every single week. Mike, thank you for your support. Corey, again, nice meeting you, and thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to the TC Backer family, and thank you, Mike B, Javi, and Vic. Love you guys. So you guys have a good night.